Welcome to Extension Network. My name is Renee Lemon and I am from the UGA Cooperative Extension in Cobb County. And today we are out at Reconnecting Our Roots Community Garden off Lemon Street in Marietta. I've got several people with me today from the office. I'm from the Agricultural and Natural Resources Department. Terry is from Family and Consumer Sciences Department, and later we'll be talking to Amy Whitney, who is also from A&R Department, talking about some problems in the veggie garden. But first, this morning, Terry is going to show us a recipe from vegetables and fruits that you are probably already starting to harvest in your garden.
Did you know that Georgia is one of the #1 producers of blueberries in the country? Bet you didn't know that. You can grow blueberries in your own backyard. Here at the community garden, we have blueberries growing everywhere. We've had a few here harvested, so I'm going to show you what you can do with blueberries to make some interesting recipes today. First of all, you can use blueberries to make a blueberry spritzer. You can make lemonade with the blueberries, but today we have a delicious salad that we're going to be showing you how to do. And it all starts with blueberries. I've already mixed up the salad dressing, so I'll just tell you a little bit about what goes into that salad dressing. It's just 1/2 cup of fresh blueberries, 1 tablespoon of red wine vinegar, 2 tablespoons of water, 1/2 medium shallot, 1 tablespoon of basil, fresh basil that is, chopped, 1/4 cup of olive oil, and a pinch of kosher salt. So what we have today are our fresh blueberries, and we have our onions here. You can use shallots, you can use onions. We also have garlic here. We have some feta cheese, even though you can use whatever kind of cheese you like. I just like feta. We have our red wine vinegar here, and also some delicious olive oil. And all you have to do is mix up all those ingredients that I mentioned together, and when you finish, you'll have something that looks like this. This is your salad dressing. Blueberry salad dressing. And even though it's not blue, blueberries really aren't blue inside. They are actually kind of a pinkish color, so you won't have a deep dark salad dressing. You have somewhat of a pink salad dressing. So when you're finished, you can take your onions, mix it in. You can also take your feta cheese, and so mix all of that in. And you don't want to put your salad dressing on here until you're just about ready to serve it, because it might wilt your dressing. And so when you finish, you have something that looks like this. We have our delicious toasted almonds, and you don't have to use toasted almonds. You could also use pecans. You could use toasted walnuts. You can add some sweetness by adding honey to those to give it a little sweetness in your salad dressing if you like that. But it's easy to make a salad out of things that are growing in the garden. All of these things can grow in your garden. The blueberries, the onions, the garlic, everything except for maybe the walnuts. But you can definitely grow the greens, and the type of greens we've chosen today are just spinach greens, but you could use any type of lettuce. You could even use kale if you have kale growing. And even though we're getting near the end of the green season, you can still grow some of these things during the summer and continue to have a fresh salad all summer long. So I hope you have some ideas of some things you can do with blueberries out of your own garden. Thanks so much.
You realize that 49 million Americans struggle with hunger? That's 1 out of every 6 Americans.
These people are around us every day. They're our friends, they're our coworkers, their kids go to school with our kids.
Sometimes we're not even aware that they're struggling. This problem is closer than you think. But so is the solution.
Play a role in ending hunger. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger and find your local food bank.
Are you getting this, honey?
Oh, prime time. We are rolling.
All right, Mama's gonna bring it home. Mama's gonna bring it home.
Okay.
Come on, watch this guy.
Oh, backwards!
Oh, don't. Oh.
It went into Bob and Carol's yard. Oh, no? Okay,
Yeah.
here it comes.
Oh, Mom!
Challenge your kids to be active and eat healthy.
All right, let's see what you can do. Let's go.
They might surprise you.
Let's go.
Search We Can for more ideas on how you and your kids can get healthy together.
I've always said that you can't change what you don't acknowledge. So let's acknowledge this. 1 in 6 Americans now struggle with hunger. These are our co-workers, our neighbors, our friends. The problem is closer than you think. But so is the solution. This is a changing day, not just in your life, but in the lives of many, many others. Join me by visiting feedingamerica.org and find your local food bank to help. I'm Dr. Phil, and together we're Feeding America.
Hi, we're back. I'm here with Amy from our department, A&R at Cobb Extension, and we are going to talk about soil testing, and Amy is the expert. I have a personal success story about soil testing here in this garden. Last year, we wanted to plant blueberries, and so I went to Amy and I said, you know, we got 9 blueberry plants, what should we do? Don't you think we need to do a soil test? So Amy and I came over to the garden and we did do a soil test before we planted our blueberries, and the pH was way too high. So we came out and we added peat moss and sulfur. We got the pH where it needed to be for blueberries. And we are now the blueberries have been in for right at a year, and they did great this year. So Amy is going to share with us all of the details about what a soil test can do.
Yeah, so one important thing that Renee just mentioned was the soil pH. And when you're working with a garden, getting the pH adjusted to the right level is super important for a couple of reasons. One is that you probably don't even know. pH measures how acid or basic the soil is, so that if the pH is in the wrong part of the range, if it's too acid or too base, so if it's too low or too high for that particular kind of plant, it's not going to take up nutrients very well, no matter what you put out there on the plants. And so the plants are going to suffer. For blueberries, one of the things that happens, if the pH is too high, then the leaves are all yellow. They look what we call chlorotic. And that's a color we don't want to see, and over time the blueberries will become less productive. They can struggle along for a pretty long time like that, but it's better if you can make them happy and healthy. They'll be less prone to diseases if their roots are in good soil that they like. And so doing a soil test is important, and it can tell you a lot of really important information, but when the reports come back from the lab, they go to the soil lab in Athens is where our reports come from. They can be a little bit hard to read if you've never seen one before. So I was going to explain how to read one of these reports. So one of the things up here is the information about the person who sent the soil in. So I make sure you got the right report back. If you have a sample number, that would be if it was maybe, if you had a yard from your front yard, something from your backyard, you might have more than one sample, and that would help you identify which one was which. The crop will talk about what you're trying to grow. So this report was for a tall fescue lawn. And so it's important to know which exact kind of lawn you're growing if you're testing, because every kind of grass is going to have a different requirement and have a different recommendation. So this one's for tall fescue. The numbers across the bottom are what the lab found in your soil. So this particular soil sample, they adjusted up to pounds per acre, it's got 16 pounds per acre of phosphorus, 148 pounds per acre of potassium, and so on down the line. And you can see the soil pH down here was 4.7. For a fescue lawn, 4.7 is low, and these gray bars show what that means for your crop. And so because that's low for fescue, the bar is way down here, just barely even visible. But if this had been blueberries that like a low pH, that they like more acid soil, the number would be the same, but this graph would be much higher, because that's a much happier place for blueberries than it is for a tall fescue lawn. And so that can help you, when you get one of the reports back, don't panic, just remember, the bars are what you're looking at, and the numbers not so much. And it also comes with a recommendation. So because the pH is low for a fescue lawn, the report will tell you exactly how much limestone, ground up limestone to add, 50 pounds per 1,000 square feet for this particular lawn. And so that will help bring the pH to a better range to help this particular crop, you're farming your fescue out there, will help this crop be much healthier and to thrive and do better in your environment. It will also have recommendations for fertilizer. If it's a new lawn, it will say for establishment, do these things. And for maintenance, if it's an existing lawn, it has another recommendation, but it will tell you, how much of what kind of fertilizer to put out per 1,000 square feet on your lawn. So you just need to kind of remember to measure your lawn, so you know kind of how big it is, so you can figure out how much fertilizer to get. And that the fertilizer is not going to have a name, it's going to be a number. So this is, they say to incorporate 25 pounds of 5, 10, 15 per 1,000 square feet. And so those are nutrient numbers. The first number, that 5, is for nitrogen. The middle number, 10, that's for phosphorus. And that last number, that 15 here, that's for potassium. And you can see here for phosphorus and potassium, those were both a little bit, well, phosphorus is low, potassium was okay, but they still want you to add more potassium for this particular lawn. But you can see there's actually not a number for nitrogen. They don't measure that because it's very mobile in the environment. So if there's some nitrogen available in your lawn, it either evaporates or it washes away so fast. They figure that in our area where it's so hot and usually humid and wet, that it's either washed away or it's evaporated away and you need more. So they don't even measure it, they just tell you need it. And they'll tell you how much your kind of crop, if it's a lawn or vegetables or blueberries, how much that needs. Because all plants have their own little special requirements that will make them happy and productive. And here in a vegetable garden, productivity is very important, just like it is for your lawn. And so when you get back a report for a vegetable garden, it will have a whole different set of information. It will still tell you if you need nitrogen. It will still tell you if you need phosphorus or potassium. It will tell you if you need to change your soil pH by adding limestone or not. It will talk about your vegetables in terms of whether they are heavy feeders or medium feeders or light feeders. And really, and that refers to how much fertilizer they're going to use. But really, most of your crops are going to be medium feeders. Only a few are going to be heavy. The only light one is the southern peas, like the cow peas, crowder peas, zipper peas, purple hull peas. That whole list of family of peas is the only ones that's going to be light feeders. But so for the heavier feeders, you use a little bit more of their recommended fertilizer. For the medium, you'll be spot on what they recommend. And for the light feeders, you'll just use half as much. So when you have this report, this is great and it can help your plants be really productive everywhere in your landscape, the vegetable garden, the lawn, your shrubs and trees, anything you're having trouble with. It's good to do a soil test, but it's also important to do the soil test the right way. And so I know, as someone who sees the samples come through the lab, come through the office all the time, that people are not always taking a soil test correctly. And there are instructions that we have available, and they are in a little green brochure that says, how to do this correctly. But I can tell you that it's not by taking a little teaspoon of dirt off the top and saying, okay, here's my soil sample. And I'm pretty sure people do this because sometimes it's not easy to dig. So, to get, though, a really great report, you need a really good sample. And the recommendation is to dig down into the root zone, which is going to be several inches down, and take a scoop, and then go somewhere else in your garden, another area, dig down into the root zone, take a scoop. And so you would do this, depending on how big the area is, several times. So for a little garden, I would go ahead and take a couple more samples, out here somewhere. You don't want the weeds, don't want twigs, so just kind of scoop around. And then when you have enough, for this one probably would be one more, but for a lawn you might need as many as 10 samples. But down into the root zone several inches, mix it together. It's important to get an average of the whole area. And so when you mix all these together, you get a good composite. And then it's going to go in, when you bring that you can bring it to the office in a plastic bag or a paper bag, but we'll move it to a UGA soil sample bag. And it has a fill to this line note right here. And so you're going to pop this open after you write on it. It's important to write on it first because it's kind of hard to write on when you've got the dirt in there. But it has the lines for your phone number and email. The routine soil test is what most people need. Your name and address, your city, your zip code, the crop, which is what you're trying to grow. It could be a vegetable garden, it could be blueberry bushes, it could be a fescue lawn. If you can be specific, that will help. The sample number if you bring in more than one bag, and the county is Cobb County if it's coming through our office. If it's going through a different office, you put a different county on there. But when you fill up the bag, like, it really needs to have dirt in it. And it's not just a little bit. There's a fill to that line, so it should be level with that line. I think I got it. And we will ship the filled out bag that's full of a good sample that's a representative of the whole area that you're testing, and it'll go to the lab at UGA in Athens and get tested. There is a lab fee for that, in case you need to know that. Most people want to know. It's an $8 lab fee, and it's coming through our office. It's cash or a check. Other offices, if you go to a different extension office, they may be able to take a credit card, but ours does not yet. And so a healthy garden, good vegetables, good fruit, it all starts with a healthy soil and making sure you've got the right location. But once you have that right, you're off and you can enjoy all those wonderful vegetables that we're going to go see in just a minute.
In 1990, in Severn, Maryland, the daughter of a clergyman was discovered by a music industry insider while pumping gas at a service station. The odds of her getting signed and spending 11 weeks at #1 on the U.S. singles charts? 1 in 19 million. The odds of this former church choir singer going on to sell 40 million records? 1 in 15 million. The odds of the same woman winning 6 Grammy Awards and starring in 2 Broadway plays? 1 in 75 million. The odds of this musician and performer having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 88. I'm Toni Braxton, and I encourage you to learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
Traditional light bulbs actually generate 9 times more heat than light. Switch to energy-saving bulbs. Saving energy saves you money.
Hi, we're back. We are now in the vegetable garden at Reconnecting Our Roots Community Garden, and I'm here with Amy from UGA Cooperative Extension talking about problems in the vegetable garden. Here we have some healthy tomatoes, but then in the very same bed we've got a tomato plant that's really sick. Amy, can you tell me a little bit about what you think's going on here?
Yes, I probably can, because I brought weapons of destruction. So this plant has a healthy stem over on one side, but like a completely wilted stem on the other. And in our area, one of the things that causes that is a common soil-borne disease called Fusarium wilt. And it's going to be hard for people to see, but you can see when you cut across the stem that this brown is clogging up the vascular system. So that's the water and the water tubes that run water and nutrients up and down through the plant. And when it's get all clogged up like this with this brown gunk, then the top starts to wilt, and that's usually the first thing people notice, that one whole branch will start to turn wilty, and then that branch will die. And it comes up just one side of the root at a time. And this is a disease that's very common in our area. But
that's sad.
It is very sad, because the plant has a lot of promise otherwise, but it has bright yellow flowers, and part of it looks green. And so if somebody had this in their garden, they might be tempted to cut off the dead part and hope that the other part can be saved. But that's not really a good idea, because eventually that whole thing is going to die, and it's not going to be productive because it's going to be all messed up from the inside. And that's going to be a problem for that plant. And so this plant actually needs to come out, and we have permission from the owner of this bed to remove this plant. that we already got earlier this week, so we're going to go ahead and remove this plant. Now, I know the other temptation is to take and replace it right away with another tomato plant. But that's not a good idea because we know that this disease is in here. And so if you're gonna, well, there's also a lot of tomato plants already in this bed, more than really it probably needs to have. But if a person was gonna put another tomato plant, in the garden anywhere, a way to keep from having this problem is to use disease-resistant plants. And a lot of times when you're looking at plants in a garden center or a seed packet, they'll have a disease code. It may have the letters V, F, N, and those are disease resistance codes, and those are really important for people to read and be aware of. I'll stand up. because if it has the F, then it's resistant to fusarium wilt, and fusarium wilt is probably what's got this plant. The V is for verticillium wilt, which is a little less common for us. And actually, fusarium is much more common in hot, dry weather too, which we've had recently. And the N is for root knot nematodes. And so those are all things that are soil-borne that can cause problems with your plants. And so you would want to replace it with a plant that's resistant to especially fusarium wilt. The tricky part is that there are three strains of fusarium wilt, 1, 2, and 3. And so it's possible to get a plant that's resistant to that first strain, but if your garden has strain 2, then it's still going to get the wilt. So if a garden has a history of a problem, we can look up and find a tomato that will probably resist whatever's in that garden. That's
So I noticed these pepper plants are healthy.
Yes.
So is that a virus that doesn't affect peppers? It only affects tomatoes?
It's a fungus that affects tomatoes a lot more than it affects other things.
Okay.
Fusarium wilt affects other things, other plants out there in the landscape. But tomatoes seem to be especially bothered, especially some varieties. Now, one of the great things in the garden, though, is that the tomato plants, even though they're close together, do not have leaf spot fungus diseases.
Like early blight.
Like early blight, which the last 3 years we saw a whole lot of because it was so wet and rainy. And so the tomato plants in general are doing really well. Their problems are going to be, at this point, because it's been so dry and the leaves are staying dry, so they're not getting leaf funguses, it's going to be root problems that we're going to see. Or remember the other problem we saw last week that came to the garden, came to the office?
Herbicide damage.
Herbicide damage.
Yes.
That's the other thing we've seen a lot more in the last few years. Herbicide damage, especially on tomato plants, pepper plants, and really all the garden plants, but tomatoes show up most dramatically. Little strappy, humpy, curled up, crazy looking leaves.
Or the yellow and coming out from glyphosate drift.
Yeah.
The plant doesn't have to be sprayed with it to be damaged because if it's a windy day, it will drift.
Yeah.
And another question that's been popping up in the office a lot is problems with the squashes.
Okay, so there are problems with the squashes. Not yet the mildews. I've seen some bugs, the squash bugs that look like stink bugs, and the striped cucumber beetles and the spotted cucumber beetles. And the problem with that is the striped cucumber beetles can carry a virus that will affect your plants. And I have seen just recently squash mosaic virus starting to show up. And there were striped cucumber beetles in that same patch. So those beetles are spreading it from plant to plant to plant. And so when you have that in the garden, those plants need to be removed.
A lot of people don't understand that zucchini is in the same family as yellow summer squash, correct?
Yes.
What all is in that family?
In fact, those are in the same genus. But yeah, the whole family has yellow squash, and it has zucchini squash, the winter squashes like pumpkins, and butternut squash, and cucumbers, and melons, all kinds of melons, cantaloupes, canary melons, wonderful things we all want to eat, and watermelons. Those are all in that same family, and so they can all be affected by some of those diseases that are starting to be spread. But you know, right now this garden is not having that problem. So that's wonderful news, because there's going to be a lot of good food coming out of this garden.
Yes, there is.
And June is a great time for vegetables, because not only are some of the things that Terry mentioned, the blueberries, the onions and shallots, and the basil, all coming out of the garden, you know, available in the garden in June. But the green beans are starting, and the yellow squashes are coming in, and the zucchini and cucumbers are coming in. So it's wonderful.
I have a question. Aren't you doing a workshop at our office coming up the middle of June?
Yes.
About this kind of thing?
Yeah. So on June 17th from noon to 3, we're going to be in the office. At noon, I'll have like a short presentation of problems that are going on in gardens in the area right now, you know, currently. But also we'll have like that open workshop all afternoon, basically, for people to bring their plant problems. They can either bring a leaf or a bug or a picture. If they need to bring a whole plant because they just have no idea what's going on, that a whole plant can come in, that'd be fine. And we'll figure out what's wrong and what can be done about it. Sometimes there's not much to do, because you needed to have planted, for instance, a resistant plant to start with and just didn't even know it. But there are some problems that can be, you know, headed off before they ruin your productivity and all those good garden vegetables that you want to have coming to your table.
So that day, if people come to our office,
the Cobb Extension office,
678 South Cobb Drive, and they walk in with a dead tomato plant,
or a sad one,
it won't be weird.
It will not be weird.
Because that's what we're doing that day.
That's right. It's never weird in our office.
No, it's normal.
That's something people maybe not know, is that people bring us snakes and bugs and spiders and pieces of dead things.
And the whole shrub, root ball and all.
Whole shrub can, and we just climb in the back of the truck and try to figure it out. That's part of what we do. And one of the great joys is that sometimes we can figure out what it is and fix it.
That's right.
And that makes everybody happy, including us, because we're all about plants and good food in the garden.
That's right. So if you have any questions about your vegetable garden, your turf grass, your fruits, you can call the office at 770-528-4070, and we will help you, or you can visit our website. Thank you so much for joining us today.